Welcome to Street Level Startups. I'm your host, Katie O'Block, coming to you from the galvanized Platte campus, home to many of the city's top startups. This season, we take an in-depth look at Colorado's thriving startup scene. Think of startups, Silicon Valley usually comes to mind, but Denver is now at the forefront of business innovation. Historically, Colorado has always been a breeding ground for risk takers and rugged individualism. Reminiscent of the pioneering gold rush era, our state is experiencing a tech boom. Denver is among the nation's top cities for business growth and career development. Recently, the city added about 39,000 jobs with an employment growth of 1.2% higher than the national average. Producer Richard Taylor sits down with several pioneers to discuss the history of startups in Colorado and explore why the Mile High State is attracting so many exciting ventures.
When you think of high-tech and innovation, I bet Silicon Valley comes to mind. But they've got some friendly competition, because Colorado has been attracting a large number of startups, investors, and entrepreneurs all calling Colorado home. But when did this boom begin? And what were the early days of startups like in Colorado?
The difference between today and the mid-90s was it was very diffuse. It wasn't really coordinated anyway. They sort of knew each other, but they didn't interact that much. What was really interesting to watch in the first 5 years that I was here, between 1995 and 2000, was this very rapid rise of entrepreneurship. The key thing about that, though, was that there was this intersection between very smart people and very creative people. And it was entrepreneurship that didn't just appear out of nowhere. It was entrepreneurship that had been building for a number of years, probably going back into the 60s and 70s.
Becoming so renowned for being the leader for entrepreneurship, one has to wonder, what makes Colorado so perfect for business to become so successful?
Colorado has a great startup ecosystem, whether it's our world-class universities, CSU, CU, DU, our highly educated workforce, our risk-taking and entrepreneurial culture. And I think that's one of the reasons that we've been able to be as successful as we are, is putting Colorado on the map as a startup mecca.
We live in the greatest state in the union. We have some of the most impressive talent coming here from all over, creative ideas, it's all flowing, and this culture and the urbanism of our center city is helping to fuel that.
When you make a choice to move to Denver, to build your business in Colorado, you're making a choice to really join a group of pioneers. Ones that may have come from large cities, that are highly educated, that want a new way of life, ones that really believe that they can make a better way of life with the lifestyle and the ability to live in a city that has 300 days of sunshine while they're working their tail off.
We have the way of life. People want to be here. They want to move here. They want to stay here. Talented people want to be here. If you think about all the things that you would want to have a strong startup or scale community, the Front Range has it. Very few other places can compete with the Front Range across all the dimensions it takes to build and scale interesting companies.
Colorado counts as an extensive and elite list of startup accelerators, helping entrepreneurs succeed. One of the most successful of these accelerators is Techstars, based out of Boulder, founded in 2006 by David Cohen, Brad Feld, David Brown, and Governor Jared Polis.
Cohen had made a handful of angel investments, and he just wasn't that happy with the process of it. He felt very disconnected from other angel investors, felt very disconnected from the entrepreneurs and from the companies. And so he came up with this idea to fund and help create and accelerate 10 companies, about 30 entrepreneurs. We spent 90 days in Boulder, very concentrated focus around it. And what it really did was engage the entire startup community in Boulder. And it was a mind-blowingly exciting experience.
And we've had a remarkable track record of success in companies that actually receive professional investment after they've been through this program. And it's now in many cities, both nationally and internationally.
Today, Colorado ranks as the top state for entrepreneurship and innovation, with Boulder being ranked as the #1 area nationwide. We even host the largest startup week in North America.
So what we wanted to do was come up with an event that really brought everybody together and really helped to put a spotlight on that community and create connections for the community. And at the same time, Tammy was doing some really neat stuff with the Downtown Denver Partnership. We got connected with her, and together with a group of volunteers, we came up with the idea of Denver Startup Week. So the first year, we had almost 100 events submitted and put together, and that's just growing year after year to now where we're almost 19,000 attendees and over 300 events.
Denver Startup Week is vibrant. It's filled with innovators and big thinkers and risk takers. At the same time, it's also filled with individuals that support all of those great ideas, that bring their expertise to the table, that help these companies grow.
So whether you're a founder, whether you're a developer, a designer, building physical goods, focused on talent, we have something for everyone. And you can really build your week around the skill set, around the knowledge, and around the things that you need to explore that creative and innovative idea to build your startup.
Education is also a huge part of the Colorado startup success. And helping businesses grow and connect is Galvanize.
Galvanize is a learning community for technology. We provide opportunities for students to learn about web development, software engineering, data science, as well as opportunities for small, scale-up, mid-sized startup companies. I think that it's really important for entrepreneurs and their founding teams to have a community, a place where that they can feel supported, because it's scary. It's scary to start a business. It's scary to not know where it's going to go. And so having people that have been there before, maybe just a few steps ahead of you, is really important. So I think that Galvanize provides this for startups, in that they come here, they rub elbows with people who have maybe gone just before them. They're just a few steps ahead of them, and they can learn and grow from one another.
With Colorado's fast-growing and vibrant startup community, there doesn't seem to be any signs of slowing down. But what does the future of startups in Colorado look like?
There are a lot of places in this country and in this world where you can start a company. But I promise you, there is no better place than Colorado, where if you decide to start or grow a company, we will embrace you, we will support you, and we will ride your journey with you to building a successful company.
It all starts with an idea, and the idea is easier, but don't take it for granted. Make sure it's obviously a good idea. Often you have to pivot, but then the real secret sauce is in the implementation and transforming your idea into reality. And then having the ability to surround yourself with the people and the team to really be able to successfully execute on your good idea.
If you think about the companies that are having the most impact on the world today, they were startups not too long ago. Maybe it was 10 years ago, maybe it was 20 years ago. In some cases, only 5 years ago. But the impact they're having on the world is dramatic. So what do I see as the future of startup? I see that as really scale-ups. Scale-ups that have broad impacts and a positive impact on the world. I think there's enormous contributions being made by the tech and entrepreneurial community, and those are being felt worldwide, and I just think we're just getting started.
What an exciting time to be an entrepreneur here in Colorado. We are all eager to see what the future holds for the Colorado startup scene and their global impact. Denver Startup Week has had increases to their attendance over the last few years. Just in 2017, over 17,000 members participated in over 350 programs. In this next piece, our street-level team explores the symbiotic connection between the Denver and Boulder startup communities.
I think that Boulder and Denver is tremendously successful when it comes to fostering and growing startups for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, the beauty outside of our windows, the mountains. People come here because it's gorgeous and they want to run and bike and be out in nature. The other part of that is talent and this ecosystem of technology and entrepreneurship that really, I'd say, started in Boulder, well, across the Front Range, but Boulder has a significant impact on the history, and then has spread really to Denver and in along the Front Range over the last couple of years.
I think if you go back, to the beginning of Denver Startup Week, there very much was, there's a sense that there was a Boulder community and the sense that there was a Denver community. I think the great thing has been is over time that really those communities have created a lot of connective tissue. You know, they still both have their own distinctive parts about them and folks that are in one community and not necessarily the other. But at the same time, there's now a lot of collaboration, a lot of crossover between those. You have companies like SendGrid that started in Boulder, went through Techstars, that now are headquartered down here in Denver. You have a lot of different venture capital firms that have invested in companies on both sides. And so I think what's great is it's creating this larger network that just provides even more than either one could do on their own.
When you think about great innovation and technology economies, most of them are rooted deeply in some sort of research center. Boulder's always been that inspiration for us. And it's been that inspiration because it's been a place that it's always been a free community where ideas have been, really rooted in meritocracy. The ideas that were best, they would win, and entrepreneurs would build them out. As those companies would scale, especially in the 2000s, Denver became the hotbed for growth. Rooted in transportation, rooted in livability, rooted in access to talent. When companies like Rally Software or SendGrid needed to expand outside the walls of Boulder, or Zayo needed to build a world headquarters, Denver became the place that allowed them to have access to talent, a city that was livable to grow a thriving business, and a place that could grow a large-scale company. So we've always had this symbiotic relationship around innovation and growth, and Denver now is coming into its own, where it has a lot of both, but we always look to Boulder for that inspiration around that really gritty entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah, we're actually in Boulder and Denver, and we think that is a key to our success. We like to attract millennials into our workforce, and millennials don't like to commute, and they like to work in urbanish areas. And Denver and Boulder is a short commute apart from one another, so it's not like we're in two separate cities. We're able to feed off of each other, a better talent pool collectively, and a group of people who work well by sharing experiences across the Front Range.
You know, you have lots of weirdness in Boulder, plenty of different, people do whatever they want to do. I like to say it's sort of the collision between the hippies and the smart people. And that collision is really powerful around startups, because startups are basically, and entrepreneurs are people who envision something that didn't previously exist. And they're putting all of their energy and focus into creating something where there wasn't something before. And that's an incredibly challenging task that requires both creativity and intelligence, but also a culture that embraces people being willing to try new things, to do things, have them fail, pick themselves up, try again, run experiments, learn from them. So that culture is wired into Boulder. We kind of knew Mork and Mindy when we moved here. We knew the mountains. We didn't really know much. And what we found very quickly was that culture that I'm describing, was the substrate of Boulder.
Boulder and Denver and Fort Collins and Colorado Springs are all great startup hubs right here in Colorado. So it's really a statewide phenomena. There's even been efforts to bring the startup culture to Western Colorado, to small mountain communities seeking to diversify their economy. The Telluride Foundation has implemented work to kind of create a startup vertical in Telluride and other ski resorts to diversify their economy. So along with kind of location independent employment that high-speed connectivity brings, there's the opportunity for entrepreneurs to live where they want to live and do what they want to do. And of course, there's no greater place to live than Colorado with our outdoor recreation and skiing and hiking and the great weather. People just love to live here.
First of all, when you talk about the best places to start a company in the United States, that list is going to include Silicon Valley, Seattle, New York, Boston, Austin, Texas, and Denver-Boulder. And to have Boulder listed among these other cities that are north of 1 million people, and in some cases well north of 1 million people, it's pretty amazing that this little hamlet has become a world-class place to start a business. Second, you've got sources of capital. You've got early stage investors that are willing to get behind entrepreneurs at the earliest stages. And you've got a culture of information sharing, which makes it possible for the startups to go get mentors in the areas that they need, as well as a culture of tolerance and celebration of the entrepreneur. If you go to certain entrepreneurial events in Boulder and Denver, the entrepreneur, the geek is the rock star up front. And so there's just this understanding that, 10 billion people on the planet, of course you've got the best idea. How can we support you? And Boulder, Denver enjoys those ingredients.
Our state definitely has the ingredients for success. With the collaboration between our cities, such as Denver and Boulder, people who are looking to start a company will not be disappointed. Venture capitalists invested a record $1.1 billion in Colorado startups in 2017, according to the Denver Business Journal. And if you've got that next billion-dollar idea, here's some keys to investment.
Hi, I'm Brad Bernthal. I'm an associate professor at Colorado Law School, and I direct the entrepreneurship initiative at the Silicon Flatiron Center here at CU Boulder. The first place you look for money is you and your co-founders. And there's a couple ways to do that. First of all, if you've got some money saved up, you might be able to bootstrap in that way. Another strategy is to do some consulting, or you and your co-founders do some things that can generate revenues. You take those funds and you cross-subsidize those into the product that you're trying to develop for the startup. So that's strategy number one. That's called bootstrapping. Strategy number two often is called going to the 3 F's: friends, family, and fools. So these are people who recognize this is a crazy idea, there's 10 billion people on the planet, but we think you have something special and we're willing to take a lottery ticket on your company. The next stage would typically be an angel investor. And an angel investor is an individual who's playing with his or her own money and are willing to get behind companies. A sophisticated angel investor is usually looking for a return on his or her investment. And so in exchange for the massive risk of getting into a startup, they're going to want a significant portion of ownership in the startup in return. And then once you've proven that there's, say, a fit between your product and what the market wants, at that point you might look for institutional money in the way of, say, venture capital. Venture capitalists have a little bit of their own money in the fund, but primarily venture capitalists are raising amounts of money from their limited partners, that is, other entities who give them money to in turn invest into startups. The key piece here is that venture capitalists are playing with other people's money, and that means after the venture capitalist makes an investment in the startup, he or she has to get that money out of the startup and give it back to the investors, and that usually has to happen on at least a 10-year horizon. There are some interesting things emerging in terms of ways to fund companies that didn't traditionally exist. So for example, Kickstarter or Indiegogo, those are individuals who are willing to get behind a new project. An entrepreneur can use that to raise funds, and in exchange for the money, usually either those supporters just want to see something created, or they'll do it in return for a gift. That's something that's been very interesting for certain types of entrepreneurs, especially those with consumer-facing goods in mind, to both gauge, is the market interested in this? And if so, can I get some financial support? And so that's an emerging way to get some support too. The leaders of companies are really self-appointed individuals. No one has to ask permission to start a company. In my experience, the best startups tend to have multiple founders. So the hardest part of getting an idea off the ground, and the most important sale that a CEO has to make, is to convince someone else to join their crazy idea. Talking, say, a technologist into doing the coding and coming on board maybe as the CTO, or talking someone who has sales expertise into joining the company at a point in which all you really have is an idea, a lot of energy, and a vision for the future. That's not an easy point in which you're putting together a team. Second, you really want to identify who in the community or what structures in the community can help you get liftoff. So recognize, especially if you're a first-time entrepreneur, you're not the first one to do this. There are other people around who have seen this rodeo before and can point you to, here's what's coming next. Here's the questions that you should be asking. Here's a methodology that you can use to test your hypothesis. And dialing into those pockets in the community is crucial in order to get the startup off the ground and give it the best chance to succeed. In order to make your startup work, you need a ton of help from outside the boundaries of the company. And the amazing thing about successful startup communities to me, and really the surprising thing, is how much of that relies upon a system of volunteerism, whether it's just meeting someone for a coffee or a mentor getting involved on a regular basis in helping a company. But there's a sort of an indirect system of trading that happens in the startup community that's not fully altruism. So it feels good to be a mentor and help a company for free. But you also understand that by being part of this network, the favor will come back to you. You just don't know from whom it's going to come back, in what form it's going to come back, at what time it's going to come back, but you just sort of trust that by being a good player in a startup community, the favor will come back to you in an indirect way. Sometimes you'll hear this called the karma economy, and there's a lot of truth in that.
Colorado entrepreneurs have experienced a lot of good karma, and it's only going to expand from here. Thanks to Richard Taylor and his team, who gave us a great overview of the Colorado startup landscape. On the next episode, we'll dive into some truly inspiring companies that are using technology to make a difference